What is up, guys? This is Dr. James Stirrett here. Good to see you. Today we are going to be talking about protein powder. All things protein powder, and I have literally 3 protein powders that we're going to review worst to best and what I see my patients thrive on when it comes to hormone health, stabilizing blood sugar, and making sure that they're hitting their protein demands. And as an added bonus, we're going to go over how to actually use this protein powder that I love to be able to build health and make sure that you're not sabotaging your workouts, not sabotaging your health by what you're putting in your smoothie or in your shakes. Let's jump into it. Before we jump into reviewing these protein powders, I really want to talk about the importance of protein overall. So protein, obviously when we eat it, it breaks down to amino acids. It helps fuel our body. Our body uses this as building blocks, and it helps to turn on and off things in our body that we need to be able to regulate our bodies efficiently. So if we don't have enough protein, we cannot build or maintain muscle mass, and we can't do a bunch of other physical processes in the body that it takes for us to actually live. So this is why it's really tragic when I see, and most men and women when they come to me, unfortunately, they're not eating enough protein. So what I would call under eating on protein for a woman would be anywhere under 60 grams of protein per day. For a man, anywhere under 80 to 100 grams of protein per day. I would say 9 out of 10 people just aren't even coming close to this at all. And how does this present itself? Typically, for men and women, we see fatigue, depression, anxiety, blood sugar instability, because protein, well, when you eat it, it actually stabilizes your blood sugar along with when you're eating carbohydrates. So protein will actually stabilize blood sugar in the long run, which is one of the reasons we must utilize it in any plan with any patient. You know, you can't skimp on the protein. But a lot of people will see joint pain, really bad joint pain. So if you're someone that's struggling with joint pain in more than one joint, if you are having hormonal imbalance, so low testosterone for men and women, for women, estrogen and progesterone imbalance, then this is something that you really need to consider. Other issues that I see are thyroid problems in both men and women, but particularly in women. If you have a joint pain and additionally you have a thyroid issue, then protein needs to be an area of focus. Now, obviously, you could say the opposite of this. I want to talk about a patient real quick that demonstrates this very well. Eating too much protein can be just as detrimental. So I've heard it said like, oh, you need to eat 1 pound of protein per 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So what happens when you've got a guy who weighs 260 pounds and he wants to weigh 260 pounds and he's a bodybuilder? Well, that's probably going to be too much protein. And you can make arguments all day long from the bodybuilding community. I totally understand when it comes to muscle maintenance and what you need to do to make your body perform in a certain way. Totally fine. I understand it if that's the aesthetic look that you're looking for, or you're trying to get to a competition style physique. That's one thing. But I'm talking about optimal health, and I'm talking about hormone health. So when you push protein too high, what you're going to see is kidney damage. So you're going to see filtration rates, EGFR, fall below probably 75, 60, and you might even fall into some levels of kidney failure. And then you're going to see ALT, AST, liver enzymes start to pop up. So if you are somebody that's consuming a bunch of protein and your doctor has told you that your liver enzymes are high, which means that you have liver inflammation, then this is really something that you need to pay attention to. So I had this bodybuilder a few years ago, and he fell into this category. He was eating a perfect diet, high protein, lots of red meat and chicken, complex carbohydrates, and the guy was jacked. He works out twice a day, picture of health, right? But he comes to me, he's got blood sugar problems, and so his hemoglobin A1C was too high. So he's pre-diabetic. His insulin, fasting insulin, was like a 10, so it was also way too high. We want it below a 5. So he had insulin resistance. Liver enzymes were up around 65 65 to 80. So there was liver inflammation, and then his kidney filtration rate was just below 60. So in one hand, you have this man who is a picture of health, right? You look at him, and people will want to look like that. However, on paper, he's literally falling apart inside, and it's based on what he is consuming, the amount of protein he's consuming. So for years, I thought, oh, too much protein is bad. Everybody just must stay away from that much protein. And it really kind of scared me as a provider. But I did not understand at the time it's the type of protein that's being consumed that actually makes the difference with these levels of inflammation in the liver, kidney filtration. Now, to any degree, if you consume way too much protein, you're going to have these things pop up. But you can control it by really monitoring and being diligent about what kind of protein is being consumed. So for both people that are under consuming and over consuming, the source of protein becomes incredibly important. I am a big fan of animal proteins, not plant proteins. So, but even that being said, throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, it's difficult for a guy my size to hit 120 to 140 grams of protein per day, which for myself is what I like to do. It's still difficult to do that with just a whole foods diet, and I tend to need to supplement with at least one protein shake per day. So that's why we're talking about protein, because most people should be, I believe that most people should be supplementing out of convenience, because otherwise a lot of people are just so busy, they're not going to be able to do it from a whole foods perspective. And for me, I'm a busy guy. You know, I've got 2 kids. For me to get up early and work out, it's a huge extra effort, and a lot of times I need to make that protein shake, and I need to get on the road to work so I can prep for all my patients, you know. And I know that you guys all live similar lives where it's go, 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 and so the protein shake is something of convenience. So we must have quality, and that begs the need for someone like me to explain what you're getting yourself into. Because if you buy a protein powder at Costco, likely you're not on the right track. If you just buy something willy-nilly off Amazon, probably not on the right track. And the most common forms of protein powder out there, while studied well and show muscle gain, right? And you might see gains with it, but what you're not seeing is typically what's happening on the other end of the labs to your blood work, what's happening to your sugar, what's happening to your liver, what's happening to your kidneys. And some of the most common brands and common forms of protein typically will be pro-inflammatory for people, and we need to dive into this. So let's get into our first review. So numero uno, and please do not shoot me for saying this. So the first thing that we're going to talk about, first protein that I do not like. So we're starting with the worst, and unfortunately we're also starting with the most popular form of protein, and that is whey protein isolate and other milk isolate proteins. Now, the reason why these are most common is because they are actually the most well studied. They've been used the longest. They have been the most popular for people gaining muscle mass and actually gaining weight within the bodybuilding community. They have been used for years and years. And so you might ask, like, wait a minute, why is that your least favorite form of protein? And the reason why is because as a provider, anecdotally, which means that what I've seen throughout practice and treating literally multiple thousands of patients over the last 10 years, is that dairy-based products, including whey, are very pro-inflammatory. So you might also be thinking to yourself right now, well, wait a minute, if it's pro-inflammatory, how come these people can gain muscle? Wouldn't that work against them? And the answer is that's not necessarily true. So when people consume dairy or whey on a regular basis, the body works up a tolerance in a way that, yes, it might be inflammatory, but our bodies are amazingly intuitive and amazingly smart in that if we eat something that's pro-inflammatory for us every day, it doesn't matter if it's cheese or if you have a gluten sensitivity or whatever it is, that our bodies are smart, and that it's going to say, hey, this guy, he's going to eat dairy again tomorrow. He's going to eat dairy 2, 3, 4 times tomorrow. So we need to increase our cortisol levels. We need to increase our resistance. And so there might be more inflammation present, but we're going to increase our body's systems to deal with that inflammation. right? So, and all the while, you're still getting lots of extra protein, and even though the body's not breaking it down as well, and you are still getting a lot of extra calories. So yes, of course you're going to gain muscle. Now, that does not mean that just because you're gaining muscle that you are healthier, right? So this is a part of the issue where if you're having a bunch of whey protein, let's say for me, I'm going to give you a great example. If I was having a bunch of whey protein, the first thing that I would probably start to notice in my labs is my blood sugar would start to go up. Because what is the correlation between foods that we're sensitive to and blood sugar? So personally, I'm sensitive to dairy. So the correlation is that when I eat dairy, when I consume a dairy product like whey, then my cortisol levels are going to rise over time. I'm going to have gas, bloating, indigestion. There's going to be inflammation. And my cortisol levels are going to rise. So because of that, it will increase my blood sugar downstream effects. It can't not do that. And over time, let's say I'm having 2 shakes a day for a year. Well, yeah, my blood sugar levels are going to be higher even though I'm not really consuming any more sugar. It's just simply because something is irritating me and my body is trying to arm itself to defend itself against that irritant. All the while, maybe I'm getting stronger. I would likely have a tendency to get more bulky in my muscle and less defined with this as well because of the inflammation and water weight that would be added as well. So super interesting. That is just what I see across the board with dairy in patients. Now, a huge way that you would know that if you're sensitive to dairy or whey is if a lot of times people will say, oh, I get the protein farts. Or, oh, yeah, I definitely get bloated after my protein shake or farting after the protein shake. That means your body is it's just sitting and fermenting in your gut. Like, yeah, you might absorb it eventually, but that fermentation process is probably causing leaky gut for you. And I would say that one of the best things that I've done for my patients as a provider over the last 10 years is encourage them to get off dairy. It's allowed people to get rid of their diabetes. It's allowed people to lose weight. It's allowed people to have less stomach issues and less inflammation overall. So you can argue about that with me all day, but literally what I've seen with thousands of people, and I'm talking about when I see their labs the first time, and I don't change a thing besides taking away dairy, and that person had blood sugar problems and high cholesterol and a bunch of other stuff going on, inflammatory markers up, and all I did was say, hey, stop eating dairy, and we run labs again in 3 months. How many times out of 10 would you say that those numbers are better? Almost 10. Almost 10 out of 10. And so if I would have been conducting research and a study of my career, what we would see is an overwhelming abundance of information that would support that dairy and whey are probably not the best things for people overall. So can you tolerate whey and dairy? I don't know. I don't know you. But my hunch would be, and my best guess would be, is that since most people can't, you probably can't either. I don't know you though. That might not be true. And remember, I am a doctor, but I'm not your doctor. So I want you to consider all this being said. This is anecdotal evidence. This is not even from any research. This is just my personal experience. And if you are trying to gain weight, build muscle, have hormone optimization as a man or a woman, I would advise you to stay off of dairy 9 times out of 10. Maybe 10 times out of 10. So that is what I would say for whey products. Stay away from them. They're my least favorite. All right, protein number 2 that you need to be aware of is going to be the vegetarian style proteins, the vegan style proteins. This is going to be when you go to Costco and you see Orgain or you see Vega Sport. These are some popular brands that I see on the shelf. They'll usually use pea protein as the base, maybe some hemp protein, and other vegetable proteins compiled in. And these are okay, all right? I still don't consume them. I used to recommend them for patients, and I used to actually take them myself. I still think my wife sneaks some of them in sometimes because she prefers the taste. But the issue with these guys is that, one, they're not a complete protein. So whey protein is actually a complete protein. Even though it's pro-inflammatory for a lot of people, it's still a complete protein. And The plant proteins are missing essential peptides, an essential amino acid composition that does not define it as a complete protein, unfortunately. So these are proteins that are going to be, 1, less digestible, 2, less absorbed, and 3, less bioavailable for our body to be able to use as building blocks, and so we can build health and build muscle, and for our bodies to be able to utilize. Now, that being said, they are less inflammatory than whey. So a lot of times people will tolerate it better than whey, but I do still hear people complain about gas. Now, the reason for this is because a lot of these vegetable-based proteins, particularly pea, they are legume-based. What do we know about legumes? Legumes are also very difficult to digest. And because of this, they can cause gas in a lot of people. And if you take things one step deeper, legumes are not actually allowed on many weight loss plans. If you look, right now we run a weight loss plan in our clinic. We don't allow legumes. And so things like hummus and peas, lentils, these legumes are not allowed in a lot of weight loss plans around. And the reason for it is because people do not tend to lose weight while they're on them. Now, so if you are somebody who's also worried about weight loss, you want to optimize your hormones, but you're also worried about losing some extra weight, you want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, these plant-based protein powders are not always the best. Now, your body might break it down better than the next person. I don't know you again. I don't know how your body does with legumes. And so it's not an absolute. So these protein powder mixes might be just fine. I actually prefer the Vega Sport myself, and we'll go ahead and pull up a picture of it right here. The issue with the Vega Sport is that there are additives. There are some things in here that I do not think are the best. I do believe they add some different seed oils, and seed oils are basically, we know, cause diabetes and cause metabolic syndrome in people. So not the best. However, you can just go basic with it and get simple pea protein isolate or hemp protein, rice protein, and if your body tolerates it, breaks it down well, these might be better options for you if you have nowhere else to go. But I am going to present a better option. Let's jump into it. All right, and the third protein that we're going to be reviewing today, drumroll please, is going to be hydrolyzed beef protein. You guys, this is my favorite protein that's on the market. It is actually amazing. So it's derived from bone broth. It's hydrolyzed bone broth protein, and it is easily absorbed. It is a complete protein, which means you get the full spectrum of amino acids, and it absorbs easy, and it's very well digested. It does not tend to cause a lot of indigestion, gas, bloating issues that are associated with whey or vegetarian or vegan-based proteins. And there are some options that are much cleaner, and the actual processing of the process, as opposed to, let's say, like a vegetarian or vegan protein, is much more minimal. So this bone broth protein, basically they're making bone broth and they're hydrolyzing it, and they're just extracting the protein from it, and that's what you got. And so I'm going to be sharing my favorite brand, and in no way am I affiliated with this brand. I do not get paid by this brand. I just like it because it's what I personally use, and it's what I recommend to my patients. So I brought it from home. It is, I'll show you here, pure paleo bone broth protein, and this again is a hydrolyzed beef protein product. And what I like about this one in particular here is that it doesn't have many ingredients in it. So it has the hydrolyzed beef protein is the number one ingredient. It has cacao, medium chain triglycerides, and stevia. That's it. And it tastes like a chocolate shake. I got the chocolate version of it, so that's where the cacao comes from. They also have a vanilla one if you're into vanilla. I give this to patients with hormone instability, with blood sugar problems, people really struggling with a lot of health issues, and it is an amazing supplement. And that's really what it is. We're supplementing protein in the diet to get those protein levels up so you can meet your protein demands. This is going to be easily absorbed. It's not going to agitate other conditions. Like it's not going to really agitate autoimmune disease and many other chronic conditions. And so that is why it is my number one choice, and I'm excited to announce it. Now, what do we do with our protein now that we got it, right? So one, you can mix it up in water. That's pretty bland. It doesn't taste very good. But what I like to do is I use an alternative milk. I use some frozen blueberries, scoop of nut butter, a top shelf, nicer nut butter without any hydrogenated oils, organic, and then I blend it up. So why do I care so much about where my alternative milk is coming from? Well, it's because the alternative milks out there on the market are generally crap, and I feel terrible, but for years, I would take people off dairy. We would just put them on these alternative milks, and they're loaded with seed oils, which we now know they actually cause insulin resistance, they cause diabetes, and a host of other health conditions. So we want to make sure that our almond milks, our coconut milks, our oat milks don't have these things. If I had to pick one, I would pick coconut milk, and I like the brand Calafia. I'll put it up here, because Calafia actually has sugar-free, organic, 3-ingredient formula that does not contain seed oils. And why do they add seed oils to begin with? It's because the seed oils taste good. They add richness, they add texture. And so I find that Calafia's products, when it says 3 ingredients only on the front, that's how you know it's good. And it'll say organic too. Most of them are a shade of green. These are very tasty. They've done a good job with these products, and I endorse them. So if you guys have liked this content, please go ahead, give us a thumbs up, like it, subscribe, hit the alert bell so you know when new content is released. Throw a comment down there if you enjoyed this. If you disagree with it, we're happy to hear about that and talk to you about that in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.